The latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. Just a few days ago, the West African nation of Benin celebrated a major political milestone. Rawald Wagnani was officially inaugurated as the country's new president. It was a time of celebration, hope, and new beginnings. But less than 48 hours later, the reality of global security hit hard. On Tuesday, May 26, 2026, deadly coordinated T groups attacks tore through the northern Benin. Columns of armed T groups on motorbicycles rode into the area and launched a fierce assault on positions held by Benin military. The clash was intense. Officially, 4 brave soldiers from the Benin army lost their lives and several others were wounded. On the other side, multiple T were also unalive, and reports showed that the retreating G had to carry away the dead bodies of their fighters as they fled. An active militant group known as the JNIM has claimed responsibility for this bloodshed. Now we have to look past the immediate news and ask the big question: why this attack happened right now? Why strike immediately after a new president takes the oath of office? When you connect the dots, this is not just a random attack of violence. It looks like a clear symbolic message. It is a publicity move by the T to test the willpower of the new president right out of the gate.
According to military sources, the army's positions were targeted by columns of armed individuals on motorcycles. So, Diodon, have there been any claims?
Claims? So far, I don't think officially. But we already know the groups operating in the area. Here we are in the tri-border area, where attacks by IRD have been multiplying for a few months already. But the sad reality is experiencing this scenario again, just a few hours after the inauguration of the new president of the Roman Republic, Wadani. For now, there are officially 4 dead among the military, wounded on both sides, and also among the terrorists. There are also reports of deaths, and there are even sources that estimate that the terrorists, or rather the Ghedes, had to evacuate some bodies. They had to flee with some bodies. At this point, we cannot say precisely what is still motivating this new attack. And in the past, we could perhaps think of these bloodthirsty people who take refuge much more on the other side in Burkina Faso and who come to sow terror on Beninese soil. I say, at some point, these attacks must now call upon these 3 countries to collaborate. Fortunately, during the inauguration last time, I saw delegations in good positions from Sahel countries who attended the inauguration of Romuald Wadani. This would mean that there is a new bridge that must now be established between these countries to be able to coordinate the activities to fight against.
You are already talking about the solutions that Benin must take to fight against these terrorists.
I propose.
Jacques.
I think that first, offering condolences to the Beninese army, because there were 4 deaths in the ranks of the army in Benin. There are also deaths in the ranks of these Ghedes. When you speak, for example, of claims, yes, the GINIM has already claimed this attack, and it's their way of perhaps welcoming Uadani. So it is the GINIM that is active in this solution. Yes, it is the GINIM. For some time now, it is the GINIM that is active, and when you see what is also happening in Mali, it's them. Burkina as well, it's the GINIM. I think that what needs to be done today, and what also needs to be remembered, is that the Ghedes have understood that at any moment, the grip is going to tighten against them, because, as my colleague was saying earlier, during the University of Uadani, we saw a delegation from Mali, Niger, from Burkina, so that is to tell you that soon there will indeed be a coalition between these countries in relation to these attacks. So I believe it is already an admission of helplessness, that this is the moment these terrorists are launching. And today, the Beninese army needs to organize itself. I followed a bit of the statement by the Minister of Defense of Benin, Who said that it is now or never to strengthen indeed? After these attacks, therefore, to of course equip the Beninese army in relation to everything that is happening. So I think they welcomed Ouadani. In relation to this attack, it would now be necessary, as far as possible and in proportion to this attack, Benin, Burkina, Togo and Niger must be able to unite against these terrorists.
It is really the imperative of cooperation. International between the different countries which is essential for me.
So for you already. It is also a test for the new president.
Yes, the communication dimension is undeniable. Because the timing is too close to not be a communication event or a de facto communication. And all the more so, since they understood the importance of the communication of symbols, that they pulled the ropes to their side so as not to give the enemy. That is to say to the Beninese, as a result, a communicable figure. And it really shows the scale of the challenge, the imperative of cooperation. I am not necessarily as optimistic as my predecessor about the future, but I really hope we will go in that dynamic, that is to say, of cooperation between these different countries, and also with Togo and Nigeria next door, to really have in the short term, even in a slightly longer vision. Because the structural question of terrorism and tyranny, in those areas, we must take every opportunity to say it. It is not the problem of a single country, it is not the problem of a single neighbor. It is a problem for everyone, and one way or another. We must be like musketeers in this approach. That is to say, one for all and all for one. Because if we leave a bit of flame on the neighbor's roofs one day or another, that will fall back on the other side, especially since in any case, in those areas, it is the same peoples who inhabit the different sides of the border. And so, we really must go into this approach of transnational cooperation. Regional to go beyond borders in the end, which the terrorists themselves do not respect precisely, and go into a positive approach.
We cannot make borders, but the leaders and populations of the country respect these borders. They have to.
Because sovereignties compel. We still need to take into account these spaces, except within the framework of cooperation, where we agree to inform each other that we have entered this or that territory, and on that side, the fact that this bloody and tragic blow for the brothers of Benin falls at a few days, but at the same time also the arrival of Mr. Des Ouadagno has allowed, and it's interesting, to open a window of new discussions between the Sahel countries and Benin. Without necessarily having to go back over what happened, everyone was able to keep their head high. We act as if there were not necessarily any past disputes in this precedent, and we opened the door to a dialogue that I think one or the other party was waiting for. But since we had to save face, we had to keep our head, and it is difficult to reach out. First when we've clashed, and so in this new approach, in this new arrival, we will hope that the collaboration will go beyond the simple visit of delegations and that we can move towards something more cohesive and coherent at the level of the subregion in particular. Especially in the field of security, it is essential.
So what even favored the extension
of terrorism in northern Benin? I couldn't say precisely. What favored it? It's the space. The search for space. In fact, this group is searching for space. So, everything that needs to be done to acquire the necessary space and settle down. In reality, that is the ambition today. And I believe that the countries being attacked understand this. The countries that are today victims of these attacks understand that there is a need to strengthen their security measures. And in Benin essentially, Operation Mirador, you are not unaware that the operation has been underway since 2022 and reinforced towards the end of 2024-2025. And people even took advantage of the renewal of military tools to operate the bloody theaters that we experienced last December, to speak of the failed coups d'état in Benin. And so, it was in the logic of strengthening the combat structure against those terrorists who just want to have a space of their own in order to create their own state for bloody enterprises. So that is the fairly clear motive. Benin was not affected by this pandemic. These terrorist attacks in the past especially since Togo, northern Togo, was not concerned either. But today, you see, it is the whole of Africa that is affected by these harmful interventions. And there is reason to continentalize if the word exists. The fight and the program to fight against these dangers. Those bloodthirsty ones. So I open a small parenthesis, so as not to only talk about blood in Benin. I would like here, because this is the first time I am speaking, on set after this elegant scene which happened last Sunday in Benin. I am going to speak about the inauguration of the new President Ouadani. Congratulations to the Beninese.
So how do we build security through the pursuit of the development of basic social services, as promised by President Ouadani last Sunday?
I think that is really a very good question that you asked, and that should indeed be the foundation of all states. Not just Benin. When you ask the question of whether Benin was not attacked and the other countries, and what motivates these attacks, in fact it is poverty. And then, when you see the space a bit, the regions that are attacked, it's the poorest regions, where, when people come there, they promise heaven and earth to people, and then people accept. That is to say, they give you 5,000. Maybe they buy you a motorcycle. 5,000 euros or 5,000. It's a lot, of course. They buy you a motorcycle, you think you are in heaven. You see, so, and when it's like that, people give in. Because people all their lives have never seen 5,000 francs, they have never seen 500, and when they do that.
Please, Jacques, yes. No, but listen, you have been inside, but if you go inside, but it is two different worlds of this new world, 5,000 francs and women, of course. But I tell you, but listen, someone can give to the exchange maybe to his daughter, or to one woman 5,000, and he takes the woman and goes away. By the way, that's what's going on. So today we should have the discourse that Ouadani pronounced in relation to the development. De service social, de base de service social de base. I think it holds the bamboo. And what is more, it was more interesting during his campaign. You saw that he made one local campaign. That is, he was going to people. That is to say that it was not one campaign where we look like people we try to talk, but he met the people, meeting women and meeting young people. Tournaments, to try to ask them questions about what their needs are. After now, come to satisfy the other aspect of the thing. One thing is to listen. Une chose est d'identifier. One thing is now to get to work. Because today, I don't think that Ouadani the Beninese are all that. He went to the depths of the interior to bring people. People will not be able to forgive him within 2 years, and if it does not put to work, to ethically satisfy their needs. And we talked about water. We actually talked about roads. So he should do it today. Because when you see, or not only in Benin, even in Togo, of the junctions between the villages, it is one little difficult. That is to say that, especially in the current rainy season, there are our brothers, our sisters who have cultures at home, but how to do it? Transport this culture from one point to one point B. With this rainy season, it's all one problem. So it is necessary to satisfy effectively the social needs of man, and that is if we can do it. I tell you that these terrorists will not be able to exploit our brothers, our sisters, by promising them happiness, and that this does not exist. They are selling pipo, effectively to people, but since people have no alternative, they are effectively obliged to give themselves the other aspect. It should be today, as we said. Whether it is Benin or the Togo, whether Niger, Burkina, or Ghana, intelligence cells should share effectively the information, and your soul, there is no more powerful army in the world if this army does not share information. Today, the whole that Togo does not share or does not have, it disposes. Because when you see today when there is a little calm towards us in the north of Togo, is because at a given time, and Burkina and Togo have understood, that information must be shared. You will see that it happens at one time since the Burkinabes continue effectively this rush in there towards Togo. Opposite that, Togo also enters the territory of Burkina Faso to actually attack these people. So I think if there is this collaboration between countries, I think we can't say we're going to eradicate them, but it must be recognized that the things are still fine. Lower one little compared to the attacks. Oh no. There is one dimension which is also essential in this struggle beyond the social issues that are fundamental, because it is the ground on which we recruit individuals in one context of the justifications that that advance from lose some of the land cultivable, it poses more and more of people beyond their of original activity, and it obviously creates clashes. And when we had one drop, continues its recipes, and that someone comes with money and all that, and weapons, and saying we will do the great conquest, we will be men, we will conquering this, creates this facility at the beyond this social dimension, which is fundamental, and moreover, which explains why the share of these countries, particularly next to the security question, military on the issue of social issues to support the population. Beyond that, there is part that is particularly close to is that of block illicit financing flows. It's from the terrorists, yes, from where it comes from. Money for terrorists, because it is with money that we buy the weapons. It is with money that we buy men, and one good part of this money, it must be said it comes, or of traffic. Illicit it is also for that who want, acquire certain territories to exploit, so that one decides either the gold or of others. There directly, or even take of the rights of passage and cash of the tax they take in this area. How to block these practices. C'est un. It's really one huge hot potato. It also leads to the confrontation to one other dimension of this struggle too, which is the financial excellence, where the money comes from. And I say in general, it comes often. A lot of less than nothing that is of the Gulf countries, but it doesn't necessarily go through the banks, because today you are asked at the bank to justify the problem. The reason why the problem of laws comes to you. Get your own money back. The problem with the laws is that it's like the star of spider, i.e. that the smaller you are, the more it stops you, but not when you are fat. You pass yourself through the people who have $5, $10, $20,000 to be passed on. Know how to transit 10, 20,000. It's easy to stop the little accountant, the teacher who wants transfer 500, 600,000, 1000 francs, but it's one little more difficult. When it's 500, 600, 700,000, because he will know, understand, and who bribed this kind of thing. So there is one dimension of the loot there that is more. Sometimes there are also circuits in the park of financing by allowor systems, of the networks that are beyond finance. Classic, and even the scheme there that I consider to be one form of financing. Where in the Sahel, there is this very complicated scenario where it is said that one emirate finds himself there kidnapped, and we weigh his at 10, 20, 30, $50,000, i.e. the armament budget, more over several years of country, yeah. And so we are in a context where when you have one such level of capital that arrives, of cash that arrives, when you are helped too, you have to say it. Not actors like the Ukrainians who today, for one, can make shit the Russians help some terrorist moments in others. Parts of the do of Israel we find ourselves with. One complex where money comes from, of colossal sums, when you have people whose journalism pay exceeds this average salary monthly from a regular soldier one. A symmetry that makes you have to be really damn patriotic for not even close your eyes. When columns arrive, what so it is. This is one very, very important of the struggle. Aspect. And if we do not control this milestone with the cooperation with actors like the BCA or financial intelligence services of the different countries, how well we can do it for the little people. If we succeed, we don't succeed in doing that too for these big actors, we will have serious difficulties to curb this case absolutely of passants. We move on to the second subject. We are so caught up in time. There is not one dirty money, but it's the people who are dirty, by the way. There is no dirty money, we have to be clear. Yes.
But more importantly, it is a desperate reaction to the major shift in regional politics. To understand what is truly happening, we have to look at who attended President Wagdani's inauguration just last weekend. Sitting in highly prominent positions at that ceremony were high-level delegations from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. These three nations make up the Alliance of Sahel States, also known as the AES. For a long time, relations between Benin and the Sahel Alliance have been tense and complicated, but the presence of the AES at the inauguration opened a brand new window for dialogue. It shows that a new political bridge is being built between Benin and the Sahel states to move past this conflict. The T group see this new bridge and they are terrified of it. They know that if Benin official teams up with the AES, the security net will tighten around them and they will have nowhere left to hide. This attack was their way of trying to break that bridge before it's even built. It is a sign of weakness and fear from the T groups, not a sign of absolute power. For too long, those armed groups have used borders to their advantage. They committed all sorts of things and then crossed the border to hide in neighboring spaces. The T groups do not respect borders, but sovereign nations do. And that is exactly why the old ways of fighting this war are no longer working. As the political analyst recently broke it down during an excellent panel discussion on New World TV, this security crisis cannot be solved by one country alone. It is not just Benin's problem. It is not just Burkina Faso problem. It is a problem that the whole of Africa must sit down and find solution to, because we know that these T activities came into being when they were looking for the way out of Muammar Gaddafi. And after Muammar Gaddafi, this has been a tool they are using on all leaders. It has spread and it keeps spreading. Like they said, it could be as a result of the leaders in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso going there, so that it will look like nobody should associate itself with them. If you do this, this is what we are going to do to you. They are also saying it could be a test of, like, the way things are happening in Africa. Our leaders, if truly they want to fight for the unification of Africa, this is the time they all need to come together, not in speech, but in action, to fight against this, because they all know the genesis of these activities. They know the genesis of these people. And will we continue to be easy win statements when we do not have a concrete way of dealing with these people? Why would they just attack a nation that has just inaugurated a new leader to lead them? Within 48 hours, they sent a message to them. It's either you distance yourself from these people, or because we have seen leaders in Africa that they were inaugurated and AES leaders were not there, and we never saw any attack on the country. Only for Benin, the new president, to make sure he brings these leaders into Benin so they can reconcile and see the way forward to protect themselves as a people. So like the panel said, this is no longer a one-nation affair. It is not a Nigerian problem, a Burkinabe, Benin, or whatever. It is a collective responsibility and a wake-up call to all African leaders that the time for us to come together to kick against or fight against this is now. If Muammar Gaddafi is gone and these activities are still spreading, it means that it is a wake-up call, and we are the only people that can change the narrative or do away with all these things. If not, we'll continue to be suffering while the resources keep benefiting people. Like Julius Maada Bio said, they are protecting borders instead of protecting the people. So this is the time for our leaders to come together and protect us, the people, and leave the borders to rot. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world in Africa, West Africa, and in Benin.